To welcome you back again to my personal study, where I do a lot of my sermon prep, a lot of working on Bible studies and just personal devotion. Spend a lot of time in this room, and pray that some of the earlier other videos that we've done has been an encouragement and a blessing to you. I'd like to talk about maybe kind of going a little bit different area. I'm going to spend some time talking to you over the next several weeks and months about books, and I'm sure if you've read my blog or any of that, you're quite aware that one of my vices is books, and I certainly believe in a minister having a personal library. And I'm sort of old school, I guess. I like books that you can get your hands on, and I certainly I'm thankful for the computer programs, and I have the Logos Bible program, which in my opinion is probably the best one that's out there right now, although it is a fairly significant investment as far as money goes, but a very effective tool to help you. But there's nothing like holding a book in your hand and being able to write in the margins of that book and even highlight some of the things that's there. So I'm going to spend some time talking to you about a variety of books over the next several months or so, and just go ahead and get your money pot ready and your piggy bank. Save some money, buy good books. I was reading an article this morning on a blog, and it talked about how that young Christians need old books, and I believe that old Christians and certainly old preachers need old books, and I believe young preachers need old books as well. I am profoundly thankful in years gone by for a good man that has already passed from this life and has, I'm sure, received a great reward. His name was Brother Jolly. Brother Ernie Jolly pastored in Alabama, up in a town called Bessemer, which is in the Birmingham area, for quite a number of years. He was also on the editorial staff for Word Aflame, and was very helpful in some of the bibliography that he did in the old Word Aflame adult Sunday school teachers books. If you can ever get your hands on some of those old Sunday school books, they are a treasure of information, not only for the content of the lessons, but also for the bibliography that Brother Jolly put together. He influenced quite a number of men. A lot of them are now elders, but had a great influence among a lot of pastors and so forth in the United Pentecostal Church. And I was a younger minister whenever I had, of course, grown up here in Alabama, had been around him and his ministry pretty distantly for quite a number of years. But in 1994 or so, I went up and preached in Bessemer, and invited Brother Jolly out just to talk to me about books. And that night I spent probably 3 hours with him or so, and he loaded me up with very good resources as far as books goes. And I'm going to be spending some time talking to you about some of those. The excellent thing with this generation now is we have places where that you can buy old used books, and of course Amazon and places like that, eBay, variety of others, A-Books. There's another website, unabridged.com. You can purchase books there that some of them are hard to get to. But today I'm going to kind of start with some of those early books that Brother Jolly recommended to me. And one author that I certainly have benefited from is a man by the name of William Gurnall. Now, whenever I was a younger preacher, these books, The Christian in Complete Armor, came out, and it was in a 3-volume set. They were paperback, and they were published by Banner of Truth, and they were abridged editions of his classic, The Christian in Complete Armor. And Volume 1 was an orange color, and then Volume 2 was a blue volume, and then volume 3 was a green set. You may have seen in some ministers' offices, studies that you've gone to, you see this little segment of books and the collection of them. These books were the first that Brother Jolly mentioned to me and talked about how that I should invest my time and energy with that, and I'm looking through that now and see that there's quite a number of markings and underlinings and observations that I made in this book. Here is one of these areas where he talks about, and he talks about, he'll use antiquated words, and some of these words that you start looking at and you think how strange and odd they are, and so I'm going to change some of those up. But he talked about how that in your battle, we are in a spiritual battle, that it's important for you to renounce what he calls bosom sins or heart sins, sins that are deeply embedded in your heart. And he says it like this. He says, this is more than a human spirit can bear to hear. Whenever, and he's making about making the analogy where that Abraham was called to offer Isaac up on the altar. He said that when your flesh is dying out, he said that you would say, soul, take your lust, which is the child dearest to your heart, your Isaac, the sin from which you intend to gain the greatest pleasure, and lay hands on it and offer it up and pour out its blood before me. Run the sacrificing knife into the very heart of it and do it joyfully. I have a feeling that you're not going to find that paragraph written in some of the modern editions that you would pick up in a Christian bookstore today, or even on some of the high marks of even the Christian bestseller list. These writings are so far removed from the Christian church in our day that we hardly can grasp the concept of what they spoke about self-denial and so on in their Christian walk. He said that that the sacrifice has to be tied down to the altar. He said this is why that we have to continue to go again and again and again to the altar of sacrifice, because he says our flesh will roar and shriek, rending the heart with its hideous cries. Indeed, who can express the conflict, the wrestlings, the convulsions of spirit we endure before we can put our heart into such a command? When the Spirit convicts you of sin, Satan will try to convince you it is such a little one, spare it. Or he will bribe the soul with a vow of secrecy. You can keep me and your good reputation too. I will not be seen in your company to shame you among your neighbors. You may shut me up in the attic of your heart, out of sight, if only you will let me now and then have the wild embraces of your thoughts and affections in secret. That's just some of the content that is in these little books. And again, you would see these books in a lot of elder ministers' libraries. Now, the great thing about this book is the fact that Hendrickson Publishers came along, and it looks like in February of 2010, what they did was they come along and they put the Christian in complete armor, and it is unabridged. And this book right here, I promise you, is an excellent book to add to your personal library. And so whenever this book came out, I immediately purchased it. And you can see here's a little bit of give you an idea about the way that I work with some of my books. And what I do is I'll take the page number and write it down over here, and then I will put just kind of a brief summary, a seed thought about what is taking place in that particular page, and then go back to it later on and develop messages in and around that. And I'll just read to you some of the things that I have written down in that. I wrote down, this is on page 12, ignorance in mind or hardness of heart causes our sin to catch us unaware, as Samson was with the Philistines. On pages 71 through 74, I ended up preaching several messages about this. There are 6 seasons of temptation, and he walks through that. And then on pages 405 through 409, I preached another message that I worked in, just kind of using his outline, and then went and beefed up the message for my own purpose here in our church. And he talks about the 6 seasons of prayer. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll turn over to that, and I will read some of the seasons of prayer that we find that he mentions. Now, I'm having trouble finding it here, and one of the reasons is because it is put into, it's halved up into part 1 and part 2, so that sort of kind of can be a little confusing to you sometimes, okay? But he talks about this. These are the 6 seasons whenever you are to pray. Season 1 is whenever the Christian is to set upon any more than an ordinary enterprise wherein he may meet with great difficulty or danger. So he's saying, one of the 6 seasons of prayer is whenever you are going into an extra effort, that you're going into something that requires more than just your regular common commitment to prayer. Season 2 is another season for prayer. Is whenever you are in the dark concerning any truth, and you are looking to make a diligent inquiry into the Word of God. And then the 3rd season of prayer is whenever a Christian is under any great affliction. Season 4 is whenever you cannot, with the use of ordinary means, quench one or master and mortify the other. What he's talking about is that whenever you're buffeted with temptations, you're overpowered with a corruption, and it seems like that there's no ordinary means of grace to be able to help you through that, then what you need to do is to invest yourself in a time of prayer. In season 5, we are to give ourselves to prayer when sin abounds more than ordinary in the times and places that we live in. And then the 6th season of prayer is whenever there are times of great expectation and that we are looking for extraordinary power in the Holy Ghost to be able to help and strengthen us. So what I did was I took this outline that Gurnall had brought, and I used it to work through and to preach that particular sermon. There are others that I have listed on here. On page 84, he talks about the reason that we should study, and he says that one of the reasons that we should spend our time in personal study of the Word is so that we are able to overcome the wiles of the devil. Now, one of the things that he does that I will mention to you prior to ending this video is the fact that Charles Spurgeon said about William Gurnall. He said, I have often resorted to this book whenever my own fire has been burning low, and I have seldom failed to find a glowing coal upon Gurnall's hearth. John Newton said that if he might read only one book beside the Bible, he would choose the Christian in Complete Armor. J.C. Ryle said, you will often find in a line and a half some great truth put so concisely and yet so fully that you really marvel how so much thought could be gotten into so few of words. And then there is a very, very helpful contents, table of contents. Now, this table of contents is excellent. It goes into great detail about all the different parts of the armor, and basically that is what William Gurnall does. He takes Ephesians chapter 6 and works through verses 10 through 18 and does a very impressive job with each part of the armor, and you can use this book as just kind of a devotional study, but I promise you it is very helpful to read this material, that it will help weave itself into your preaching and even Bible studies, so that you will be an encouragement and inspiration to the church or the congregation to whom you're preaching to. Hope this has been helpful, and until next time, God bless you, and thank you for watching this video.